Moving into some studs and duds of the week. Kyler Murray, we already touched on. He's obviously stud. He scored 34.5 points. If you started him, you're loving it. The
Played
next
against
guy
him, you're not as happy.
that we played it, that the Minnesota Vikings went up against, Joe Mixon, ended up with 127 rushing yards, 23 receiving yards, and a touchdown. He led the entire NFL in touches for week 1 between air yards and rushing yards, obviously. 23 points. Joe Mixon, where are you guys at on him for the year? Because I think fantasy consensus was a little bit tepid on the guy coming into the season. What do you guys think of that type of workload to start the year?
I mean, if I were to listen to what the butthole said, that front line for the Vikings is elite. And he did that against an elite defensive line. So he's obviously great. I think he's probably the best running back in the NFL because he did it to that defensive line. So
sometimes I hate you so much.
Yeah, we all know you don't listen to the butthole, though. So what is your real opinion?
I still think he's getting drafted exactly where he should have been. He's going to have big weeks. He's going to score touchdowns in bad weeks, and he's going to end up a middle-of-the-road RB2.
Low RB1, high RB2, middle-of-the-road RB2. So
yeah,
somewhere in that
16.
20 range, 16 to 20.
Yeah, I could see him being a high-end RB2. I mean, the offense there, they look pretty decent. I mean, obviously, this is the first game with this Vikings defense all together. A lot of changes, so it's not surprising we struggled a little bit. But overall, I think our defense is going to bounce back. However, Joe Mixon is still going to get a lot of workload. Samaje Perine is their backup. So he's not going to...
They were backups together at Oklahoma, too. They put their backfield back together.
Just imagine.
My point is that Mixon is still going to be... He's going to get those carries. He might be getting 25 workload a week.
Just imagine if you had Derrick Henry as your 1 and Mixon as your 2. You're pretty damn glad you had Mixon as your 2 today. Or Ezekiel Elliott as your 1.
Or Aaron Jones.
Yeah. There was some highly drafted running backs that had bust weeks. Clyde Edwards-Helaire barely made it out of the single digits for points. He's a guy that is such a tease.
Yeah. That's I mean, are we gonna roll right into the duds there? I mean,
let's stay with some studs here.
Okay.
Obviously, we had Tyreek Hill. We talked about him in the Infinity Stone segment. He had an absolute monster week. Travis Kelce, 76 receiving yards with 2 touchdowns. Can't go wrong with a guy like that. You drafted him as a tight end 1. You might have drafted him in the first round of the draft. If he's scoring you 22.6 points, you're perfectly okay with that.
Yep.
The next guy, Elijah Mitchell. This is the guy that we talked about off the top. He had 19 carries, big time workload after Mostert went down, 104 rushing yards and a touchdown, 16.4 points. Just absolutely went wild. He's definitely worth at least watching as far as waiver wires go. I'd be a little bit, obviously, like we said, scared to go all in on him.
Or Mirage.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Is he a Marvel or Mirage?
Elijah Mitchell.
Yep.
Undrafted rookie, correct?
Sixth round
draft pick. I think as long as Mostert's out, I really think he's a Marvel. I think he's going to get a workload. He showed he can be trusted. Shanahan likes guys he can trust. He also goes with the hot hand. A guy that puts in 104 yards and a touchdown on 19 carries, to me, that's a hot hand. I think he's a Marvel while Mostert's out for the first half of the fantasy season.
I'm going to go Mirage. I think the high-value draft pick of Trey Sermon will come out and hit the field. I think it's going to be a hot hand approach, like you're saying, and it's not always going to be Elijah Mitchell.
I am Mirage for the reason of they have multiple running backs. They like to use multiple running backs. Shanahan has never been one guy as that back, so give me the Mirage on this one.
He did go all in on Mostert, though, 2 years ago when they had their Super Bowl run. Well, Mostert was the guy, and he rode with Mostert.
Jeffrey Wilson that year.
But Mostert had the majority of the carries.
Yeah, Breida was there. There was
Breida would have games with 180 yards that season.
It was Mostert is the one that sticks in your head because he was the last 6 weeks pushing into the playoffs where he absolutely dominated.
That might be true. Yes, that might be true.
It's kind of leaving a little stain in your head, I think, because Breida and Jeffrey Wilson both had 100-yard games throughout that year.
Another thing to note regarding the guy that can actually go between the tackles, JaMychal Hasty is not that type of guy. He'll be their pass catching, change of pace guy.
Third down back.
So between Mitchell and Sermon, one of those guys will get the majority of the carries. And if they split them, it'll be about 10 each game. Brandon, you pull up the stats or no?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, I just didn't know if you were or not. Nonetheless, Elijah Mitchell went fucking wild.
I'm sure you guys
are
right.
Monitor him on the waiver wires. And then moving into the next guy, Mark Ingram, he's also worth looking into adding. He had 26 carries, big time workload. He only had 85 yards. So it's not like he was very effective in his carries. But then he also had a touchdown to boot, 14.5 points. If you can get that on the waiver wire out of a running back, it's worth looking into.
Where do you guys
Not even
sit
necessarily fantasy, but I just want to say, as a team, that was the biggest surprise of Sunday for me was the Houston Texans.
The fact that they came out and destroyed the Jags.
Yeah, looked good in like all aspects of the game.
Brandon Cooks was a stud.
Tyrod Taylor looked like a pretty good quarterback,
Yeah.
which I think you were the big Tyrod fan, right? Before
Just
Herbert
saying
took over
he's had a bad shake in the NFL.
Yep.
Is what I said.
So you're like, give him his shot, and then the fake lung injury, and the Herbert comes in, and
Star has a soft spot for quarterbacks that are kind of underwhelming that don't get a chance to prove their worth.
Is this a shot at Teddy right now?
No,
that-
this is a compliment.
Because Teddy's my boy.
I don't know why you would. I don't know why you would go there, Star. I don't have a clue why you'd go there.
Where do you guys sit with Ingram? Do you think this is Marvel? It's a little far from me.
Yeah, I think it's a marvel. He's the starting running back. He'll get a lot of the first opportunities for the team. They did split the carries quite a bit, but I think it's Mark Ingram's role.
They didn't split it that much.
I think it's a mirage, and the reason I think it's a mirage is because how many more games this season are they going to be up like that? Philip Lindsay's a better pass catcher.
Keep sleeping on him, man.
DJ's a better. David Johnson's a better pass catcher. When they get into situations where they're going to have to pass the ball, I don't think Ingram's going to be the guy.
But big trust, man.
So I'm going mirage. I like Mark Ingram, but I think it's a mirage.
He's old. I don't know
it's
how
a-
I feel.
it's a
I'm not
mirage.
spending my money on
Right in the
him.
middle.
Well, it's because, like Gage said off the top, he's not sexy. Mark Ingram's been fantasy relevant up to except last year. He's been fantasy relevant almost as long as
He's been in the league.
he's been in the league.
We've been alive. Oh,
No,
Pretty
not
much.
quite that
He's
long.
not quite as bad as Frank Gore, but he's close. And then, like, he's just not a sexy pick. But he's obviously, I mean, any guy that gets 26 carries, you got to at least take a look at.
you can do it.
I think if you're gonna grab a guy off the waiver wire, he's worth looking at. I mean, most likely you're gonna be dropping like, maybe a Tyrell Williams, or you might be dropping some sort of third
Rashad Penny, possibly.
Tevin Coleman, maybe. Who knows who you're gonna be dropping? But there's somebody that you took at the end of your draft that you could take a shot on Mark Ingram and drop that guy.
Yeah, and I do think he'll be a guy that'll have weeks where he'll have 10 plus points, which if you can get that, that's not a bad thing. The next guy, Jalen Hurts, 264 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, another 7 carries for 62 rushing yards. And this is exactly what you were hoping for when you drafted Jalen Hurts.
Oh, yeah.
You get the 60 rushing yards to go with the 260 passing
You got it
yards.
right.
The Eagles absolutely dismantled Atlanta, and Jalen Hurts looks phenomenal. I think this isn't even a debate, right? This dude's he's a stud. For fantasy, he's a stud.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. And I think this is who I'm going to choose as my big surprise of the weekend. The Eagles, I slept on the team, man. They looked really freaking good
And
against
Jalen Reagor, who was completely ineffective last year, had a pulse. Devontae Smith, the guy that they drafted, is their clear-cut number one target.
Rookie wide receivers, week 1. That was a freaking surprise.
They all had a good week. Jamar Chase did. Jalen
that
Waddle
guy.
caught a touchdown.
And you had Smith at, I think he had 70, 80 yards in the
Who are-
score.
Who are some of the other ones? First round wide receivers. Rashad Bateman's on IR. Was there only 4 this year? Am I missing somebody?
Well,
Oh, Kadarius Toney. He
But
didn't have a
the
day. But there was
Giants,
3 of
yeah.
them that did.
when you rope in the quarterbacks too, Trevor Lawrence had 20 fantasy points or 19.8. He threw 3 touchdowns. He had 3 interceptions, but he threw 3 touchdowns. Zach Wilson ended up having an okay fantasy day.
Yeah.
Trey
a little
Lance threw a
disappointing.
touchdown. Justin Fields scored a touchdown.
Every first round quarterback from this past year got a touchdown.
Yeah. So, I mean, the rookie class is, at least from fantasy wise, is looking fun, except for Najee Harris, who didn't have a great day. But Buffalo Bills that's a tough draw.
Who's seen that coming?
Hey man, I'm still gonna pull the dub this week in Dynasty.
And
You think?
the last
Yeah.
guy.
The average is going to rise tonight.
No, the average isn't what you're playing against in Dynasty. It's top 6, bottom 6.
That's what we agreed
Oh.
on. Yeah, and I have Jay Tuck going, so of
The
course
reason
the
that-
average is gonna rise.
The reason that average is in there is because you got to have something that isolates everybody. But
Wonder who's number 1.
here we go.
Some bitch.
Corey Davis
Yeah, you.
The last
So
stud of the
weird.
week, Corey Davis had 5 catches for 97 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Electric.
It's not surprising. Jamison Crowder was out with COVID related.
I think a lot of
Close
people thought
contact or
Elijah Moore,
whatever.
who we forgot about, rookie Elijah Moore, was going to step in and have a big day, but it ended up being Corey Davis.
I think they
He
went
was
out.
the big money in the offseason they spent on Corey Davis.
Yeah.
And he was a top 10 pick in the draft he went in, and he never really got to his full potential in Tennessee, so maybe he will achieve that with New York Jets.
You
He
also
was
got to
never
think
bad, though, either with Tennessee.
he
was
wasn't
decent.
great his first couple of years, but he also didn't have great quarterbacks his first couple of years. And
That's
then once he
true.
got Tannehill, he slowly started to improve, and now he's back to being the number one guy. Got a guy who can sling the ball. Wilson can move. Now Wilson didn't look amazing. I watched his highlights too, and there was a lot of errant passes, a lot of broken up passes. It made Carolina Panthers defense look like an all-star defense.
He definitely showed his rookie knowledge there.
Yeah.
But there was a couple plays he was dodging sacks. I mean, he
He was getting
He's
eaten
got
alive back there.
athleticism that will definitely be effective in the NFL.
He was running for his life.
If he can stay healthy. There was a couple
And-
times he got hit where he looked like he was a little slow to get up.
And
Injury
Becton-
that's fantasy related because of Wilson and the rest of the team, but Mekhi Becton did get injured as well on the offensive line there.
Ooh.
dislocated kneecap, and
Oh.
timetable is TBD right now. They don't know. I mean, Mahomes came back after 3 weeks, but he's also not a 350-pound, 6'10" man.
It's
So,
expected to be 4 to 6 weeks, is what I heard.
is that what it's saying now?
Yep.
Okay.
Which is still plenty of time. But
Yep.
On an
Ouch.
offensive
Stay
line
alive.
that's already not a great offensive line. Let's get into some top duds of the weekend. The most noteworthy dud is Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay as a whole, really.
Ah, yeah. Gotta love it, man.
Sick.
I
Aaron
felt like I
Rodgers.
felt terrible after the noon game. Not only because I was super hungover, but also I just felt terrible from the loss. And then all of a sudden I'm turning on this Packers game and paying attention. And I started
Mood
feeling
just
better at
slowly
the end of the
ramped
day.
up. Yep.
I don't know if it was the rest
Oh, and then
or if it was the loss from the Green Bay, but it was awesome.
the Bears get the L on the night game. The whole entire NFC North is 0-1.
And
We
guess
all
who's
get to
first
start
place?
The
tomorrow.
Vikings are
Woo!
first place,
because
baby.
we had the AFC game.
No, we
Because
have
our
point,
point
differential.
differential.
We
Yeah.
only lost by 3.
But that's the other thing. I think everyone else was playing NFC teams. We were the only ones playing an AFC team. So that's
That is correct.
like a fourth or third tiebreaker.
So this is a sneak
Just
peek
saying.
into the next podcast. But when we break down the Vikings, we're going to get into the pie chart of blame, which is the thing that we're going to be doing now because we lost. But with that being said, there's going to be some talkers, and
yeah,
it's going to be fun.
it'll be a good day.
It was,
Some other big time duds. Matt Ryan, he had 164 passing yards, 8 rushing yards. He had 7.3 points. He was completely under pressure all day from the Eagles pass rush. He got hit 9 times. He took 3 sacks. That Atlanta offense looked completely just overwhelmed. And then, of course, Aaron Jones to go along with Aaron Rodgers. He didn't do anything either. He had 9 rushing yards, 13 receiving yards. Saquon Barkley, which is an expected, I would say, dud. They're going to limit his workload, and he was
Yeah.
going against a good defense. I think they'll also be limiting his workload this Thursday night as they play the Washington football team, which is also a good defense.
Dudley front seven.
The last noteworthy one, Julio Jones. He put up 29 receiving yards, 4.4 points. He just didn't look good. The
Well,
whole Titans offense was
the
not able
Titans,
to get
and
into a
that's the
swing of
thing.
things.
Let's just say this though: he's a 31-year-old receiver.
Yeah,
I think it turns.
called out by his coach.
he did get called out by his coach for doing a dumbass thing.
What did he
Mike
do?
Vrabel said he got a like a misconduct towards the end of the game. Yeah,
So I mean,
no, that'll happen to anybody.
you got Julio. I know he's a name. He's been fantasy relevant for 10 plus years, but at what point does this guy fall off the cliff?
I don't
it's
think.
going to happen eventually.
Is
I
he
just
here?
No,
I don't think it'll
no.
happen until he's in his mid-30s, dude. I think
AJ
he's-
Brown got his.
I think Julio's got a couple more
AJ
great
Brown
years
caught
left.
4 for 49 and a touchdown. That's not really getting his.
He got his, man. Double
got it.
digits is getting yours.
He got a touchdown. It was not a great week by any means. And when your quarterback gets sacked 5.5
Mm-hmm.
times, or was it
Well,
5.5?
2
Or
He
forced
got
fumbles.
sacked 5 times by one
player,
player.
one
But
guy.
Hall of
The
Fame,
average
Chandler Jones.
Chandler Jones.
Yeah, Gage's rage.
The average Chandler Jones.
But when that happens,
that
and
great.
he only threw for 212 yards, like nobody ate on that team. AJ Brown got his, but he didn't eat. Wasn't a great week for him.
He's just
He
not
was
starving.
okay.
He ate. He's not hungry. He ain't going to bed starving.
He's maybe hungry, but he's not starving.
He ain't going to bed starving.
He's gonna have pains coming at the later of the week, being like, I need to eat more.
I don't know.
Listen,
I
man.
feel like that was just a bad game from Tennessee's offense. They got stifled by that defense, and I don't see that being a consistent week-to-week thing with those players.
I hope not.
Maybe Julio is the one that maybe could be consistent, but Henry is going to do better. I think Brown is going to have better games, and I think Julio is going to have better than what he put up today. I don't know if he's ever going to be back at that elite status as he was, but I think that was a mirage of a game by the Tennessee offense.
I won't be concerned for Julio unless it happens again this upcoming week. If Julio has another single point game this upcoming week, now my panic meter is starting to go up a little bit.
And Taylor Lewan is pissed.
Yeah.
So
Well,
hopefully he comes back an angry man.
Well, he's
a
just gonna get
firecracker
better.
Always.
the thing you find out with teams like Green Bay, Tennessee, the teams that get blown out week 1 is what they're made of.
Mhm.
Because if you come out and destroy the next team you play in week 2, okay, now you're 1-1. It's not the end of the world. But if you come out now and lose in week 2 and you're 0-2 and you have playoff aspirations, both of these, the Titans don't go out and get Julio Jones because they want to win the division. They get him because they want to compete for a Super Bowl. Well, if you want to compete for a Super Bowl, first you got to make the playoffs, and starting 0-2 is not a good way to do that.
Not a lot of teams make the playoffs starting 0-2.
Yeah.
I'm going to be curious, though, to see how that number percentage changes because it's an incredibly low percentage. I'm going to be interested to see what that percentage changes like now that there's an extra game.
I would think it does go up.
Yeah,
with that
because
extra game.
with that extra game, a lot of times teams that would start 0-2 would get hot at the end of the year and they'd come up 1 week short.
Yep.
With that extra week now, you're going to be playing a divisional opponent at the end of the year. It might be enough to get you over the hump more times than obviously what the number, because right now it's like 12% or something.
Very
It's
low.
It's
so low.
extremely low.
As far as if you start 0-2, you have 12% chance of making the playoffs.
But
It's
you gotta
going to go
think
up a
that's
little bit.
1/8 of your season. 0-2.
Well, and they also added the 7th playoff team. So there's
Yeah,
a
there's
lot
two
of-
things
that will
working.
help.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
2 things really now working for you. So
And it won't be
Uh,
long, and there's going to be another game. They're going to go to 18, so you have even number of home and away games.
that wraps up duds of the week.